we're going to talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, also called BJJ, and how it can change your life even if you don't actually train it. I'm going to do my best to try to keep to the time, but if you need to leave, whatever it is. I won't get hurt. So how are you involved, obsessed, with BJJ? So photographic evidence to the contrary, I actually wasn't an athletic kid. And it wasn't until adulthood that I started getting into moving around, fitness, martial arts. And so I started jiu-jitsu in 2016. Last year I was awarded my brown belt, which is the one below black. And really though, with each belt change, I've realized that every promotion just indicates that you now understand how much more you have to learn and how much more you have to improve on. So please don't be impressed by the belt color. So what even is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? It is a relatively young martial art or combat sport where you and your partner or opponent try to submit each other without using strikes. And so what do we mean by submit? Well, it's tearing joints, it's choking off air supply, it's strangling so you limit the blood flow to the brain. That sounds like fun, right? But each person has the superpower of tapping, right? So if I tap, I indicate what is happening to me right now needs to stop, and it will. And so when we spar or fight or train, we also call it rolling. And a roll is ultimately a conversation in which you are trying to grind down your partner's will to go on. And let's see. Okay, so what does a conversation of jiu-jitsu look like? We're going to ask legendary jiu-jitera, Bia Mesquita. She's considered the female goat. So this is high-level jiu-jitsu. She's taken the back. She got her superpower. Tammy exercised the superpower of tapping. So it stopped. And here's another competition. So it looks arguably chaotic. Those of us in jiu-jitsu were like, oh no, there's like 17 different nuances that went on in each second. So how come this won't go? So what does my jiu-jitsu look like? Oh, would that it looked like this. Would that I were standing over the people with glory. No, this is what my jiu-jitsu looks like. I am the person with the green arrow. I'm the person on the bottom. I really wish that this were face-to-face contact. Other kinds of contact, it seems. And here now, I'm here because, in terms of what might jiu-jitsu have for you, even if you don't train it. And I want to say that these life lesson slides are written from the perspective of a learner, but in terms of us being teachers, instructors, mentors, managers, there's also an element, if you invert anything that's about learning, it can also be about teaching, training, and managing. So I just offer that as well. So, period, full stop. Unfortunately, to me, growth comes from being uncomfortable. David Bowie said it. The prophets have said it. We can consider that to be fact. And jiu-jitsu is the art of being comfortable with, or of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there's multiple forms of discomfort, so many. There's physical, certainly, as you saw, psychological or egoic. That's a big one. I should be so much better at this. Please don't pay attention to me. But a really important distinction everywhere in any domain is that uncomfortable or unpleasant is not the same as unsafe. So growth comes from being uncomfortable. Growth can happen when you're experiencing something unpleasant, but I really don't think that growth can happen if you're feeling unsafe. So I just note that. So what's the ultimate goal of training jiu-jitsu? Okay, so rather than play the clip, if you haven't seen The Princess Bride, watch it. I won't fully act it out. But there is a scene where it's called the Battle of Wits, and it is that poison has been poured into some cups, or a cup. Tricky though, isn't it? Is it one cup? In any case, someone dies who wasn't really expecting it. Luckily, jiu-jitsu isn't really lethal, but it's a good metaphor in terms of what our goal is. Our goal is to trick our opponent. Our goal is to eventually become victorious. And there are a number of paths to victory. And I anticipate some of you are like, well, that seems like there's a dialectical tension. We're saying that BJJ is an empathy machine when you're seeming to break people's spirit and their bodies. But there is an aspect of it where I need to understand what my partner's thinking or feeling. I need to understand what they should be feeling with this kind of submission. I want to understand where they are. If I were to compete, we won't go into that. But I want to understand their psychology so I can get the better of them. And an important aspect of what we say is like, stop playing their game and make them play yours, right? Like, I am short and small. There are things that my body can do better than other people, but there are things that my body can't do. And a lot of the times they're like, oh, why don't you do this? And I'm like, I don't do that very well. Thank you so much, sir. Let us try this. And, you know, an aspect of life is everything you do is a form of practice and habit building, for better or for worse. So if you go home and sit on the TV and watch Netflix, no judgment, but you're practicing getting better and better at that. And if that's not what you want to be doing in your life, if that's not your goal, then you might want to think about how can you better align your goals and your practices or your habits. So how do you train BJJ? Well, in a lot of places, we go to school, we call it an academy, some places call it a dojo, and the structure of a class is that there's a demonstration of a sequence, and there's repetition with feedback, so we partner up and we go back and forth and we try to do the thing, and then we roll, we spar, improv, if you will. And so there's a conversational analogy for class where the demonstration of the sequence is kind of like a short phrase. So it's like repeating back and forth, the cat fell out of the tree. And so I go with my partner and I say, the cat fell out of the tree. And she says the cat fell out of the tree. And I say, the cot fell out of the tree. She's like, Cynthia, you said cot and not cat. And I'm like, oh, again. I do that all the time, right? But that's what it's like. So then when it comes to rolling, where I'm with a new partner, I'm ready to go, and I'm like, the cat fell out of the tree. And they're like, my dog ate the steak off the counter last night. And I'm like, what is a dog? So there's this aspect of you're constantly encountering things that you may not know. And so eventually with time and with practice, particularly spaced practice, particularly practice that has feedback, you need the person to say, you said cot, not cat. And you're better off if you can also, I miscalculated my slides. In terms of feedback, you want also some feedback that is helpful, but that can also help you with concepts. So just not more sentences about cat, but get someone who can help you understand what a cat is. How does a cat relate to a dog? And so high-level BJJ, right, I said that jiu-jitsu was a conversation. Well, high-level BJJ is like a rap battle, right? So you have someone, Eminem is there, and he's saying his real name is Clarence, and Clarence lives at home with both parents. And everyone is like, oh! And that's what it's like when you're watching good jiu-jitsu. You're like, I can't believe that person just did that. Oh my God. And there's a rhythm, and it's really, really fun to watch. But to get there, you have to sit on the bus, and you have to like think of your rhymes. And I actually haven't seen 8 Mile, so I don't really know what happens in the green arrow. But probably some uncomfortable situations where Eminem learns. So what can we derive from that? One is that you can rarely learn by only observing. So Professor Mike, that wonderful smiley human who you saw giving me my brown belt, as he says, he's like, look, if you could learn by just watching, just go on a YouTube, watch a video about how to trade stocks, and you'd be a billionaire. But that's not how it works, right? You have to actually get involved. You have to do the work, and you have to get a lot of things wrong. And the structure of your training is critical. So you have to understand the what and the why. So going back to that cat fell out of a tree example, you have to understand, like, oh, I'm just learning short sentences. I'm not actually learning what a verb is. I don't know what a cat is or a dog is and how they relate. And maybe I should, right? And there's an aspect, and this is kind of more, we're starting to invert now for that, if you're an instructor, you're a professor, you're a mentor, you're a manager, in terms of the why, to understand also where might there be gaps in what, how you're helping people learn. So some people just they learn spontaneously. They happen to be really naturally good at this thing. They were never taught it. They got to figure it out on their own, and they don't know how to teach it to other people. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just something to be cognizant about. And what's really important is, how do you know what you're doing wrong, right? So in jiu-jitsu, I know the person's not tapping. They're still breathing. They're still like, talking. They seem very, very comfortable. But I also want feedback. And so I ask, what is this? What did you feel like? What kind of adjustment did I need to make? That kind of thing. And that's really important. Something that people like to ask, is BJJ magic? Well, if you look at this, and there's Mikey in the black, and then there's Mikey like subsumed by the blue on the side. Mikey won this fight. And so you say, well, it's BJJ magic. BJJ uses leverage, and leverage amplifies force, but it can't make magic. And just in terms of life lessons, like, the feather's gonna stay a feather. You can't make the feather lead, right? Like, so there's an element of just when you're working on a problem, understanding the circumstances that you're in. So circumstances might be external. They might be like the rule set, for instance, in a competition. Again, this is purely BJJ focused at the moment. I'm so sorry. Or circumstances might be something that have to do with me. Literally like the length of my whatever bone this is has a tremendous impact on what I can do in jiu-jitsu. And it depends person to person and also then role to role. So it could be the same partner, but he's gained 5 pounds of muscle since the last time we rolled. Well, that's really different circumstances. And so I need to understand how I'm both benefited and disadvantaged by my circumstances, and I need to build a strategy for how I'm gonna hopefully win. If not, learn. We have this nice saying that some people agree with, I do, which is there's not winning and losing, there's winning and learning. Tell that to the guy on second place, right? Like, he might have a different opinion. And then, something we talk sometimes, you might have heard, about what happens when you punch above your weight class. And I am one of the smaller non-child people in my academy, so I know a lot about what it's like to fight above your weight class. And in terms of significant effects, there can be great benefits. Like Mikey, the world loved him so much more because of the heart that he showed in this fight. But that's a lot to deal with, and there might be some physical repercussions. And so it's just something you want to think about. In terms of if you are really, there's a big difference, or there's a big delta there between kind of where you are and where you might want to be. So wait, why do I leave at 5:45 a.m. to do this whole not face-to-face contact thing? So as it turns out, BJJ is actually magic, at least for me and the people that really embrace it. And for me, it's a place where I feel safe to be challenged and get things wrong. And here's another magical aspect of BJJ as far as safety, is that I can go literally anywhere in the world, into a place full of strangers, and I know that when I tap, they will respect the tap, and what is happening to me will stop. And there's just something really amazing about that experience. It's a community where I can ask for help, and not only is it available, but it's joyfully shared with me. We are crazy people a lot of the time, and we really are really interested in details. Like this grip is really different from this grip, which is different from this grip, and we will spend hours talking about it. And so if I have a question about that, there are tons of people who are there to help. And a side note too is I don't know some of those people's names. It's amazing. You will train with people and you're in the most physically intimate positions, and it's dangerous. They might break my arm or tear the ligament, and yet there's an aspect of all we are doing is this. This is the only thing that we're doing right now. We're not our jobs, we're not how we grew up, we're not how we identify in any different categories. We are just two people coming together to do this one thing in this moment. And so it's also an experience that contextualizes the other aspects of my day. A lot of the time, the worst thing that's going to happen to me has already happened, right? I've already nearly passed out. So this email having a typo, maybe it's okay. Which isn't to say I have lower standards, but just in terms of my personal level of anxiety, what happens when I see the typo, rather than crawling under my desk and sobbing. It's oh, okay, there'll be another email tomorrow that I might get something else wrong, right? And this, in terms of being uncomfortable, but this is an opportunity that I feel my light can help warm and illuminate. I am in a position now, I have enough knowledge, and I've developed, seemingly, I've tricked them all into thinking that they should listen to, not all, some people, the inexperienced ones, into listening to me, but there's an aspect of feeling like I contribute meaningfully, which is really, really satisfying. And so, am I saying that you need to train jiu-jitsu too? Well, and I will play this clip, because, how could I not?
Someday the people of this village will have to face El Guapo. We might as well do it now.
In a way, all of us have an El Guapo to face someday. For some, shyness might be their El Guapo. For others, A lack of education might be their El Guapo. For us, El Guapo is a big, dangerous guy who wants to kill us. But as sure as my name is Lucky Day, the people of Santa Poco can conquer their own personal El Guapo, who also happens to be the actual El Guapo.
So from that, you can extrapolate. Do I think that you should train BJJ too? Of course, but you may not choose to. And I hope instead, if you decide not to, that you find something that gives you a safe place to make mistakes, that challenges you, that helps you grow, and where you can feel like your light is helping to warm and illuminate. So that is, we're not going to do this again. And that's how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the Princess Bride 8 Mile and the Three Amigos can change your life. Thank you all so much.